Welcome to Module 1, the role of the editor. Editing is the essence of writing. I love this quote because it is the editing process that brings writing to life. Ideas are shaped, molded, arranged, and rearranged to capture the vision and message of the author. In this module, we are going to talk about the role of the editor. From the editor standpoint, the global perspective is the high-level view of the entire document. An editor is anchored by this perspective and uses it to establish parameters for what needs to change or remain. Next, we will discuss why it's important to have a healthy respect for the author. After all, it is their work, and you're serving in the capacity of an advisor. Finally, throughout the editing process, it is required of an editor to be thorough and detail-oriented. This is why you are being paid. Editing is a kind of creative activity where, in a perfect world, an author and an editor find that elusive oneness to understand each other intuitively. This quote fascinates me because it captures the partnership that is forged between the editor and the author. You will have this type of synergy with your clients as well. So let's begin. Module 1, Lesson 1, the global perspective. Read the draft and suspend judgment. We begin from the assumption that the author has already written copy for the editor. One of the first steps an editor takes when beginning the process of editing a manuscript is to preview the document or draft. When you begin the draft review, be careful not to judge what is written. Remember, your goal is to capture a global perspective, and stopping to evaluate creates a barrier for seeing the bigger picture. Identify the core message. The core message is the main point that the author is trying to convey. It is the purpose for the book. As you read the draft, you will either see an explicit core message or an implicit one. However, an implicit core message needs to be modified and clearly stated. The reader must certainly make sure that the author's meaning is clear. Search for unity and cohesiveness. When you do a global overview of a document, the editor needs to be comfortable with unity of ideas and how well connected they are. This is an important step. It emphasizes areas that need modification so that the complete document is written logically. And finally, evaluate transitions. Transitions are a critical part to bringing the document together. As the editor reviews the three major parts of the document, like the beginning, the middle, and the end, she will evaluate how well one section or paragraph or series of paragraphs connect to the other. This process can be tricky because nothing is done in isolation. It takes a global perspective to capture these connections. A transitions guide is included in your resources. We edit your words, your sentences and paragraphs, but never your voice. This is an appropriate quote describing your relationship with the author. Lesson 2, Healthy Relationships with the Author. Understand your author's personality. An editor will spend a significant amount of time working with the author until the job is done. It's important to understand how both editor and writer can flow with two different personalities. An editor may choose to require the client to complete a general survey that includes a personality question or two, just to help identify personality characteristics. This allows the editor to determine whether or not they have a good fit. I recommend you conduct the survey early in the process. In the event that you do recognize conflicting personalities, you have time to make a decision to continue or move on. Establish a communication plan. Understanding how to communicate with your author will benefit both parties. A well-established communication plan includes scheduled meetings, periodic check-ins, and modes of communication. When you schedule a meeting, you want to make sure that the meeting meets both of your needs, whether it's the time of day, whether it's the time of week. You have to make a decision about when you can consistently meet with your client. When you do periodic check-ins, this is most effective if you're working on a long-term project. Perhaps you have a 3-month project. Maybe you want to do a check-in once a month. If you have a 1-month project, maybe you want to do a check-in once a week. You want to make sure you communicate with your client what is the best time to do these check-ins. And of course, modes of communication include email, phone conferences, telephone messages, text messages, or even virtual meetings. And choosing either or all of them is something that you need to do and discuss with your client. Again, you want to establish the ways you intend to communicate early in the process. It is a time-efficient way to complete this editing process and project. Give constructive feedback. Providing honest, positive feedback allows the author to embrace your proposed ideas. Remember to always start with a positive phrase before making any suggested changes. This method softens the author to receive news that you're about to make some changes to what they have written. Feedback is very delicate waters to tread, and being sensitive and compassionate about what others deem their life's work, the editor will make a great inroad toward a final manuscript that the author can be proud to have written. And finally, the author has the final say. The point of this lesson on how to have a healthy relationship with the author is to respect the fact that the author has the final say. End of story. They are paying you to give them what they want, and the editor never loses sight of that fact. That's why it is essential to collaborate during the entire process and ask questions along the way. Be a critical thinker. No words are too good for cutting room floors. No idea is so fine that it cannot be phrased more succinctly. Very key to what it means to take into consideration the details that you will be managing in a manuscript. Lesson 3, be detail oriented. That means pay attention to the details. Draw on your natural ability to pay attention to those minute details. In other words, you have gravitated towards this work because you are conscientious about minute details. We'll discuss more when we get into the editor's marks and proofreading. Understand that reviewing is a process. Reviewing is a process, and it may take several drafts before the author is satisfied with the final product. So be patient with your author. To ensure close editing is taking place and close attention is happening, you want to actually do some reviewing with a few good tools, right? Perhaps you want to include in your toolbox a ruler, highlighters, pencils, pens, maybe an eraser, and perhaps even a pair of good reading glasses. When you use a ruler, the purpose of the ruler is to keep the eyes focused on a line of reading, line by line, so that you're not drifting or adding to or taking away what's not there on the page. It is a great guide for just reading the text to get context. If you want to use highlighters and you have questions for your author and you're not sure about where to find that information that you've been looking at, a highlighter will serve a great need here. This will allow you to intentionally highlight the sections that you will revisit and discuss with your author in your check-ins. Of course, pens and pencils are the staple items of any editor, but I want to recommend a pen that has a fine tip that works very well. It's called the Pilot V5 R2, and that's the model that has blue, black, and red ink pens. I think those are exceptional tools for writing editor's marks on your drafts. Now, congratulations! You understand your role as an editor, and I'll see you in the next module.